on marching on. Head down till the work is done. Waiting on that morning sun. Soldier, keep on marching on. Wanna take a drink of that promised land. Gotta wipe the dirt off of your hands. It gets hard to stand. Soldier, keep on marching on. Head down to the rocky town. Soldier, keep on marching.
It's time, folks, to begin construction on the wall, but not just a wall, a great wall. Because the Wu Lin, they're crossing our borders and invading For Honor. We gotta build a wall. We gotta do it. We just gotta. And it will be the greatest wall they've ever seen, you've ever seen. And the Wu Lin, they're gonna pay for it, folks. That's what's gonna happen. Okay, so, obvious jokes aside, allow me to introduce you to the Wu Lin faction of For Honor. Year 1 of For Honor saw the game's release and the arrival of a few new DLC heroes with a lot more maps, game modes, but over time, after the release of the newer heroes, For Honor kind of stagnated a little bit, only releasing the occasional update and the occasional character rework or something along those lines, but really For Honor was starting to flounder a bit. That all changed in October 2018 with the release of For Honor's new DLC heroes and their newest content update, their biggest ever, Marching Fire. Marching Fire was an update that would give an overhaul to the graphics and art of the game. It would help change up a lot of the heroes' moveset. It was basically what we would call For Honor 2. It was the release of so much new stuff that it barely looked like the same game anymore. And along with it came 4 new heroes who made up the Wu Lin faction. These warriors were heavily based on Chinese warriors. The Wu Lin, with the word meaning forest fighters or warriors of the forest, usually this is seen in Chinese literature or traditional literature in reference to a group or subsect of martial artists. They come into the battle wielding exotic weaponry and incredibly deadly battle arts. Now, I'll go ahead and admit that my knowledge of ancient China is not as extensive as my knowledge of Japan and Korea, but I will do my best and share what information I am familiar with, so bear with me on this. Now, the first thing that I want to bring up is the For Honor lore about these guys is interesting. Apparently, in a land far to the east, the ancient Chinese land where the Wu Lin came from was heavily struck by the cataclysm that the For Honor world suffered 1,000 years ago. Their society broke into civil war, with various factions fighting for supremacy, and the Wu Lin rose to victory. But soon, even they were fighting amongst themselves for resources and power, so now many have started moving westward in search of new land, and have found it here in the world of For Honor. Well, now they just have to beat the other 3 factions already here.
Good luck.
But enough about that. So now that you know who the Wu Lin are, and what the lore says about them, let me talk about realistically here about who the Wu Lin likely were and about China in terms of their warriors. In Chinese history, war was fundamental, and battle and combat is integral to their past. You can't ignore it as a part of Chinese history. Hell, one of the most fundamental books that we have today on war tactics and strategy was written in China by the philosopher Sun Tzu, known as The Art of War. So I find it very insulting and wrong that so many fans of For Honor get pissed off at the arrival of the Wu Lin faction. I remember when they were released, so many people got upset and angry. And I could talk about all of what they say, but I'll just bring it down to the three main things that are said. So firstly, they like to say that they're just a bunch of commies invading For Honor, that they're the commie faction. Some say that they're nothing more than light spamming dirtbags. And then others say that the developers are just trying to get a cash grab off of a new faction rather than balance the game. Okay, so firstly, about the commie thing. If that's just a nickname, sure, fine, whatever. I mean, every faction has their little nickname, like the meme lords with the knights, the neckbeards with the Vikings, the weeb team. So if you're calling them the commie team, fine, that's a funny nickname, I'll grant you. But if you actually think the Wu Lin were communist, no, communism was not a thing in China when the ancient warriors were around. Ancient China was not a communist country, so that does not fly. Second, the light spamming thing. I'll probably make a full video about light spamming and ways to deal with it and why it's annoying. But for now, let me just say this. If your whole reason for hating the Wu Lin is because some of them are capable of light spam, I'd like to remind you, many warriors can light spam better than the Wu Lin. There are a few Nobushi, Orochi, Peacekeeper, and Conqueror mains who'd like a word with you. Trust me, they're not the only one. And then the cash grab thing. You are aware that Ubisoft is a company. Their main goal is to make money. And if the game does not make money, they will stop updating the game and it will die. See, since most of the fan base, namely you complainers, kept making it harder and harder for people to come to the game because you wouldn't stop complaining, trust me, the reason I started this series was because I went to YouTube to find positive reviews about For Honor, and so many were so negative, needlessly negative, that even I started to wonder why I was playing it. So it's good to have some positivity for the game, but since you can't be positive, the developers said, okay, we're losing money at this point, let's do something nice and big to attract players back to For Honor so we can make more money on the game and thus make these updates. It would be absolutely foolish for them to update this game purely for money-making purposes at the expense of the fun. They're not EA, okay? Topical. So, I'll save my discussion about the For Honor community for another video. Don't worry, I do have things to say about them. But me, I'm more of a historical war, martial arts, and weapons enthusiast, so I'm only going to be talking about those things. I'm going to stay off of the gaming aspect, because if any of you know me as a gamer, you know that I'm not that great at gaming. I just enjoy For Honor, mostly because it's one of the best games I've ever played, one of the most fun games for me as an enthusiast of these things, so that's why I make this series, that's why I enjoy talking about it. The Wu Lin seriously deserve more appreciation than they get. I think that they were a fantastic addition to For Honor, and it sets the precedent that For Honor can have new factions, which I think would greatly increase the fun and creativity that the game has to offer. I hope that they continue to make more factions in the future. I hope that they continue to grow the Wu Lin faction, and I cannot wait to talk to you about these 5 heroes. Possibly more coming. So, with all that out of the way, tune in next time, folks, when I finally talk about the vanguard of the Wu Lin, the Tiandi. We'll see you there.